Okay, Bob, it's my topic this week.
That's right.
Because at the Florida State Fair, I judge wines.
That's right.
And there's always a great contingent of wines from Missouri. And a lot of people say, Missouri? If you check the history of winemaking in America, even Thomas Jefferson, our founding fathers, they tried to make wine from the vinifera grapes that they brought over from Europe, but on the East Coast, they would just rot on the vine. They couldn't do anything with them. And the native grapes are okay, but you know, the muscadine wines, well, they're nice, I'm not knocking them. And those type of wines, they make decent wines, but they really wanted high quality wines. And a lot of people don't realize, back in the 1800s, the majority of wines were made in the Midwest. A lot in Ohio. In fact, you're from Ohio,
That's
Bob.
Right. It was #1 for a good long time.
Back, I think, in the 1850s, and around right after the Civil War, believe it or not, there was more wine produced in Missouri than any other state in the United States. So, I've got some Missouri wine, Bob.
Well, I can hardly wait to taste it, Mr. Stanley. I know, I must admit that I've learned more about wine from Bob Stanley's exploration in wines, if you will. Most people get really stuck in a rut. You know, in America, we're like, if you're a bud guy, you're a bud guy, and that's what you drink all your life, and you really don't explore. And the same people, when you drink wine, you only drink white, or only drink red, or I only like Merlot, or this or that.
Right.
And you drink the same thing over and over again, and you're never really going to learn anything about wine if you don't get adventuresome and branch out a little bit. And one thing that Bob has brought to my wine education is his exploratory nature, and he always has turned me on to wonderful wines that I never would have wanted to taste.
Well, they're not always wonderful.
Well, they're not, and they might
But they're
not be
different.
today. They're different, but this week Bob brought me some wines from Missouri, and I said, Missouri? Are you kidding me? Usually in my time, when I've traveled to little wineries during the summer, and many of you are going on vacation this summer, and you'll be riding back up north to visit friends and family, and you'll see this little sign on the side of the road, winery, wine tours, and you pull in and do a little wine tour, and every state in the Union has a winery.
They
usually.
sure do.
But of every state in the Union, surprisingly enough, Missouri makes some pretty darn good wine.
They really do. On the table right there, I have a cherry wine. And again, my wife once said, you're going to get drummed out of the wine club drinking fruit wines like that. Well, grapes are fruit as well.
That's right.
And I think cherries are second in phenolics to grapes. Phenolics are the compounds that when you smell a wine, you might, hey, it smells like grapefruit and cat pee and other things, which aren't necessarily bad. I think cherries are #2 in phenolics. We're not going to taste the cherry wine, but I see it did get a medal at the Florida State Fair because there's a sticker on the back. That's where I grabbed it. That won't age a whole lot. This is St. James Winery from Missouri. They call themselves America's Midwest Winery. Been around a long time. But the grape that I'm excited to taste, Bob, is this one here. It's called the Norton grape. And you never heard of it until last night, correct?
Ralph Norton, that's right. That's exactly right. If you see it's been opened and vacuum bed, that's because I went, wait a minute, Bob, we're going to taste these first before we do them on the show, because then I was a doubting Thomas. Bob had tasted them before, and he's got a very broad palate and is very adventuresome, and I just wanted to make sure. So we did, and by golly.
In fact, this winery, St. James, they make, hopefully I don't put them in reverse. No, not to be confusing here. Here we go. The Norton grape is not a Vitis vinifera. Vinifera grapes, oh gosh, we're going to sound like scientists now, Bob, and bore people to death. Vinifera grapes are the ones you always hear about. Cabernet, Merlot, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay.
All from Europe.
All European, right. But in the United States, we have Vitis Lambrusca wines, Vitis rotundifolia, which is the muscadine grapes, and Vitis, this one here, which is the boy, I forget the name of it. Some other species. All right, it doesn't matter. Acephalus, I think, something like. All right, I'll look it up later on. So this is a Native American grape. You can get it nowhere else in the world, and even Jancis Robinson, renowned writer,
World-renowned writer.
she says these are indistinguishable from vinifera grapes, the Acephalus grapes.
That's right.
So last night we went and tasted. They make the regular one, and then a little higher up kicked one, and then the reserve one. So me and Bob says, let's do the reserve right away. You should taste lighter to heavier. But we went with the heaviest and back downhill.
Taste the best first. Yeah.
And we're going to run out of time in this segment. So let's take a break and come back
And we'll taste these bad boys.
and see how they are after being open for one day, Bob.
That's right.
We'll be right back.